All right, thank you so much for staying with Daybreak. We're getting into the news review session. So this morning we're going to merge the newspaper review plus the conversations we're having, because it's all about the weekend action and everything else that took place. We'd like to know what you think. Let's start off with the one thing that is on everybody's top of mind, the new currency. What do you make of it? And what do you make of the directive to have the old 1,000 shilling notes returned by the 1st of October? We'd like to hear what you think. 22422 is the SMS line. You can tweet at Citizen TV Kenya, at Trevor Mbija, at Zinzi K. The hashtag we're using is Daybreak, but not just that. We'll talk about everything else on the newspaper, but that's the first thing. Let me introduce my guests real quick, beginning from my immediate left. We have Honorable Edwin Sifuna, ODM Secretary General. Thank you so much for coming in, and also a lawyer. Asante sana. Followed by Honorable Tiende Amolo, a member of Parliament. Asante sana, and also part of the drafters of the Constitution. So he will tell us whether the tender that we have, the images that we have, whether they're unconstitutional or not. And also Honorable Caleb Kositany, Member of Parliament, Soy constituency. Asante sana for coming in.
Thank you.
And this is where we want to start from. Storm over CBK's dirty money, front page of the Daily Nation. Before we get into all the other details, there's also the issue of NAT forming new lobby for women teachers' rights, and outrage at Sonko, the bully of Nairobi. But first up, does the Central Bank of Kenya Governor Patrick Njoroge or President Uhuru Kenyatta have the power to demonetize currency? Constitutional experts say no, which means last Friday's directive is null. But to many, the elephant in the room really is the image of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta statue on the new banknote. And that's where we begin. Honorable Tiende, I'll start with you, because you're part of the drafters of the Constitution. What do you make of this directive and the currency itself?
Well, first of all, I think it is timely that we have new notes. Actually, under Article 231 of the Constitution, and if you read it with, together with Schedule 6, Section 34, we should have had new notes immediately the Constitution came into effect. And all that was saved in the schedule was to validate the pre-existing notes, to allow time so that we can have new notes printed. 8 years down the line, 9 years actually, is when we are now having new notes. So we are 9 years too late. I will actually have you know that when I was ombudsman, I raised that matter with the governor of the central bank. And they wrote back, and that was 7 years ago, 6 years ago to be precise. They explained that they had been in the process of determining what kind of images to have on the note, and that was the reason for the delay. I think that the delay was too much. So I believe it is timely. The second issue is whether the central bank has the power to issue the new notes. Now, I disagree with those who say they don't have the power, because a careful reading of Article 231, read together with the Central Bank of Kenya Act, gives the central bank that power. No one else has that power. Okay. And so if we were to argue that they don't have the power, then we'd have to ask ourselves, then who else has that power? Thirdly, the president does not have the power to issue new notes. And I take it that the only thing that happened is that the central bank, having issued and gazetted the new notes, then gave the president the opportunity to announce it. Yeah. Now, it is not therefore that it's the president who issued them. He does not have the power to issue them. But there's nothing wrong with him announcing. But I think the major issue is the image of the new notes. I believe Article 231 is very clear. It does not allow the portrait of any person on the face of the notes or on coins. My looking at the image of what has been printed clearly shows the representation of the founding president, President Kenyatta, on all the notes. I believe that that is wrong.
All right. Honorable Kositany?
Well, first of all, I have an issue with this headline, Storm over CBK's dirty money. I don't think that was part of a discussion when the notes were launched. But as Tiende Amolo has said, that it's a legal requirement, it's a constitutional requirement that has been long overdue. The issues of the images are issues that can be sorted out. But I think we want to say, congratulate the central bank and the president for having moved to try and legalize our currency as per requirements of our constitution. And I think we as Kenyans, we want to support the issues of the image that is there, can be sorted out as we go along. Yeah. But we feel that the timeline given is a bit too long. Because once you launch something new, let it start taking effect immediately.
When you say sorted out, what do you mean? As the legal tender goes on, we can change it immediately?
Yeah, as the legal tender goes on, we can change it, because these are issues that have emerged. Maybe somebody overlooked it, maybe they thought with the image, the statue, they wanted the KICC, but they forgot, as they were putting the photograph, they forgot the statue of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, because that is what appears. I personally have no problem with it, but if it is in the law that it shouldn't be there, then we have to comply with the law.
Honorable Tande, will that be a prudent move, that in between we realize that if, say, someone goes to the court, can we change that currency again?
Well, first, if someone went to court, most likely they would be going to court to stop the validation of the currency.
So it will not even circulate to begin
I think that it is gravely unfortunate that we can take 9 years and still get it wrong. I think that's a heavy indictment on the governor of the central bank. And it puts us in a confusing mode. The good thing, though, is that having indicated that the new currency should take effect on 1st of October, there's still time to reconsider. And I think that it would be prudent to reconsider and issue a gazette notice. Because, part of the problem we've had with the Constitution is that we always try to breach the Constitution that we passed, and then we proceed to complain. And so many of the problems that we have result from direct violation of the Constitution. And then people now blame the same Constitution for not being effective. And I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah, so the only move at this particular point is someone goes to court, then the circulation is stopped.
That would be the likely. I foresee a lot of Kenyans, or some Kenyans, doing exactly that.
Sifuna, what do you make of it?
First of all, I don't know why Honorable Kositani has a problem with the headline, because I was in Narok when the governor of the central bank was launching this currency. And he did specifically say that part of the concern with the 1,000 shilling note has been the presence of dirty money in circulation. So the headline is lifted word for word from the speech by the governor of the central bank. My senior Honorable Tenda Amolo has already spoken on the issue of the constitutionality of the court of the images on the currency. In fact, for me, I don't think it is oversight. When we were in the stadium, immediately they said they had gone for KICC. I told somebody who was seated next to me that I pray to God that they get the angle of KICC right. I think in the last week, there was a story in the Daily Nation on how the KICC was designed. I believe they said it was designed out of a flower. The amphitheater is the flower in the bud, and then the rest of the building is the flower in bloom. So that if you are going to take an image of a KICC, you would expect to see at least those two aspects that depict the building. So for somebody to leave out the bud, for instance, and then go for the statue of the founding father, is to be mischievous, and we know for a fact that there was mischief in it. It is a waste of taxpayers' money. I know that the delay for the 9 years that Otienda has spoken about was also as a result of our regular tender wars on who was going to get the right to print the currency. In fact, if they wanted to get this right, if the law says that we use images that depict or symbolize Kenya, they should just speak to the person who did the graphics for your studio, because just looking around, I see you got KICC right. I can see Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya there. If they used Mount Kenya, for instance, everybody agrees that Mount Kenya is a depiction of what Kenya is about.
So they had several options.
Absolutely. They had several options to use.
Honorable Moses Kuria Gatundu South MP is now joining us, and also presidential candidate. Is it okay to say that?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in this morning. We're speaking about the issue of the banknotes that are being changed. What do you make of them to begin with?
Well, I think people are raising fundamental issues, particularly in terms of constitutional compliance. I think certainly somebody will go to court, and I think we will look forward to what the court will say. Because you can argue one way or the other. You can argue it's KICC, you can argue it's a statue of someone, or it is an image of someone. That is arguable both ways, and luckily, I think the courts will pronounce themselves on that matter.
Okay. I want to play some sound bites regarding this particular move. So there's been a lot of reactions to it. Some people allege that the reason why this money is being withdrawn is so that we can catch the people who have the money behind in their vaults or something like that. This is what the leaders had to say concerning this dirty money circulation. Listen.
Stood the test of time, being the highest denomination of Kenya's legal tender for ages. But the course is changing coming 1st of October this year, when the new currency comes into force, declaring the old obsolete. The sudden recall aimed at fighting illicit cash in circulation is both welcome and unwelcome in equal measure. Accompanying the Deputy President in a fundraiser at the AIC.
Niseme pia kwa sababu nasikia kuna wengine wameingiza siasa. Wanadhani tuko na magunia ya pesa kule nyumbani. Ile miezi 4 ambaye president amesema hata inaweza songeshwa ikuwe mwezi 1 au miezi 2. Ndio tukikuja kanisa tena beaza miezi 2 tupeane pesa, hakuna Kenya watatuambia. Kuna watu wengi wamekuwa wakisema ati Dede Nyoro ako na pesa mingi sana na magunia kwake nyumbani. Sasa mimi nasema hata hii muda ipunguzwe pia, ikuwe kama siku 2, ndio watu wajue Dede Nyoro hana mapesa kwa gunia, wezi wajulikane hadharani na we will be able to see the wheat and the chaff.
Support. Hii pesa ingine ilikuwa kubwa sana, haitoshi hata kwa wallet. Hii ingine ni pesa kidogo, inatoshana dola na sisi wote inaweza tutoshea. Tunaisupport kabisa. Na hiyo pesa tunaitamani kuiona. Hata leo ingewezekana Your Excellency kama ingetoka jana. Hiyo pesa ndio leo tungetumia hapa kwa mchango. Kwa sababu tunataka hiyo pesa. Hiyo pesa ingine tulikuwa tunabeba hata kwa mchango inakuwa kubwa sana. Tunataka hii ikuwe ndogo ndio tukibeba, badala ya tutoe mchango milioni 1, tukue tunatoa milioni 5 na milioni 10. Kwa sababu itakuwa inatoshea na tutabeba. Sasa gunia zikuwe mingi.
Financial year serikali huanza July 1st. Kama ingewezekana hiyo directive Mheshimiwa Rais aseme ianze Julai tarehe 1, ili tukiendelea mbele tuanze fikra ya kufikiria hizo fedha zitaingia kwa mifuko ya wananchi namna gani.
It is not right for us to make it difficult for them who are holding legally acquired cash to be able to bank their money or to be able to convert their money into the new notes. So we need to make it easier for everyone to transact with the new notes and not think that everyone who has cash is a criminal.
All right. Honorable Tiende, I'll start with you. Will this stop? Will this be a deterrent to money laundering, number one? And will it stop corruption in any way? Or will it even lead to arrests?
I think let me start from where Honorable Kositani left on what's in the headlines of the nation. I don't know why the word dirty money, whenever such a terminology is used, it immediately evokes feelings of referring to the Deputy President and his team. I don't know.
Nobody has said that.
But, well, we've just seen the clip. You've seen that was our colleagues who had accompanied the Deputy President in some function, and immediately then the issue arises. I think what is true, though, is that there are many people who have stocked a lot of cash in their houses. Since these regulations in terms of banking came into place that restrict deposit and restrict withdrawal. And most likely, anyone who has huge amounts of money in cash in their houses most likely will not have gained that money legitimately. Because if they did, they would bank it, they would explain to the bank the source of that money, and when they want to withdraw it, they will also withdraw it and explain why they're withdrawing such a large amount. So the fact that anybody should fear depositing that money and withdrawing it, most likely it means that it was acquired through dubious ways. And to that extent, therefore, the idea of having new notes is likely to help us fight that vice, because suddenly those who have those kinds of money are in a crisis as to what will they do with it now. If they want to suddenly donate it in Harambes, the way I've seen some of my colleagues say, I mean, let them go ahead and donate it quickly. But I think one of the other things that we need to start doing as a country is ask ourselves, fundraising is inherent in us. And the idea of Harambee is a very good and important thing in this country. It has always been there. But the amount of money you produce in Harambes should be commensurate to your earnings. Yeah. And when you produce large amounts of money that cannot be explained in terms of your earnings, then it should also be invite 2 people to speak to you. The ESCC should ask you the sources of that money, and KRA should ask you whether you paid tax that is equivalent to what you produce. Yes.
Because we all contribute in churches sometimes. Nobody asks you to explain where that money is from.
I'm shocked with the statement by Tenda Modo here that the source of income is only what you earn as a salary. That is not the only source of income for a lot of people. I'm sure even him, he has an earning from his legal practice and other. We saw one time he has built a very palatial home back in the village. And we are not asking him where he got the funds to do that. But I think the idea of abolishing the 1,000 shilling note is a good move. So that if there are people who have stocked money, then we can have that money back in circulation. And of course, while that is happening, then we can know who are these people who have had huge sacks of money in their homes. Yeah. But going forward, I think it will also help in the fight against corruption, because that way now, with the new notes in circulation, it will mean if there is anything like that, any dirty money people will rush between this period. And I was at that function where the Deputy President was yesterday. Yeah. And what we said is that the period given up to October 1st is a bit too long. It should have been shortened so that you get. And I remember, Trevor, this happened in India, where Prime Minister Modi abolished, and people came in with serious amount of money in rupees when they abolished a certain, I think it was the highest denomination of their currency. And it actually helped bring back money into circulation. And there's this thing that we shouldn't think that the only people who have stacks of money are those who contribute in Harambes. Yeah. Other people who are doing business also have, they are not necessarily politicians. Okay. They have a lot of money in their homes. Okay. So let us have this, take this with pride and say, as Kenyans, we need to support it. And that is why we came out as members of the Jubilee that said we support it. Yeah. We will sort out the issues of images as we go along, and I can see our brothers in ODM really have an issue with that image of President Kenyatta, but let's move on. All right, Honorable Kuria.
Trevor, looking at that clip from that function yesterday, and looking at the 4 months that were announced, not by the President, but by the Governor of Central Bank, the guy whom we have entrusted with our monetary regime. Yeah. So you would imagine that the guy just woke up and said 4 months without any other consideration. And this is where my problem is, when we start to politicize and to trivialize something like monetary policy, because this was a major monetary pronouncement by the Governor of Central Bank. You remember the old the chairman of the Federal Reserve, there was one guy who was saying when he coughs, the markets catch a cold. And someone from that sector, from the money sector, and as somebody from the economic sector, I get very worried when I see such trivia. That was being said there. It is not for Kimani Ichung'wah and Sylvanus Osoro to say it is 1 week or 1 month. When the Governor of Central Bank pronounces himself, that should be it. And that is why, you can't have people not starting to raise aspersions. Is there something else? Because nobody accused anyone. And I think I want to support Caleb. There's so many people, not politicians with money, but they didn't speak yesterday. They didn't go to church. Yeah. So what we need to do from the political class, is also to really, I don't know why we are becoming such a petty nation. Yeah? A nation that trivializes anything. A nation where nothing matters except politics.
But I think, Honorable Kuria, my colleagues there did not trivialize the matter. What they actually said is the time given up to October is a bit too long. They actually were pleading for a shorter period. I think that is all they were saying. And they have their right as Kenyans.
Trevor, if I was born yesterday, I would agree with you.
You see, the reason why even I agree with Honorable Moses Kuria when he's taking issue is those politicians who are talking make it sound like everything that is done in this country is about them. Because as we have rightfully observed, there are other people other than politicians. For instance, where we were celebrating Madaraka Day in Narok, the pastoralist community there, they also do trade in their livestock, and the Somali community, they are holding money. So it's not about the politicians all the time. This kawaida mwananchi, if you gave them, for instance, just a week or a day to be able to replace all these notes, it would take a lot of stress on their part. You would see very long queues in banks, in all those places. And I'm sure that the people who are pushing for a shorter timeline are the ones who would actually be embarrassed by showing up in public with this money. On the issue of Harambes, Honorable Kositani, we don't have a problem with people raising money, but really the questions arise because everybody's, especially for public officers, everybody's income is known. So we don't see the justification between your salary and the amount of money you are donating. Then we are told that we also run businesses. Then the question arises, Trevor, we have put you in charge of 2 enterprises. One is running the country, and the other one, you say you are in charge of running your private enterprises. For some reason, the country is going down, but your businesses are doing so well. You have all this money to be able to do it, to donate at Harambes at every turn. The same manager running 2 different entities, one going down the drain and the other one doing so well and successful. So that is why we raise these questions. Okay. Personally, I was at 2 Harambes this weekend. I raised a total of 50,000, which I can explain. You know, yes. Okay. But if I suddenly started donating 20 million every week, I am sure even you would want to know where this money is coming from.
All right, let's take a quick